Dear students, today's topic is matter waves. The wavelength associated to a matter particle, a material particle, and it was proposed by de Broglie. It is a kind of a foundation stone of quantum mechanics, so it was developed separately and independently by Schrödinger and Heisenberg. But de Broglie hypothesis, the wave particle duality, they gave the conceptual foundation of quantum mechanics. As we already know, the photoelectric effect was explained by Einstein by using the concept of light quanta. We have already read this. And in 1923, the famous experiment of Compton, which showed the Compton effect, where it was seen that photons, which are light, actually they possess momentum, and that means a collision with photon takes place when light ray falls on some surface. The electrons on the surface are collided with light particles, that means the photons, and the momentum transfer takes place, and we see that the photon scattered possesses a longer wavelength, that means less amount of energy, and the difference amount of energy is gained by an electron, which was known as the recoil electron. We have all seen this, but which essentially showed us that the photons possesses momentum, which is possible for a particle. So during that time, though it was not accepted and understood very readily by all, but some evidences and explanations were there where light has a particle nature. Waves have a particle nature. That is important. But simultaneously, light also exhibit its wave properties, like diffraction is seen in light, interference, polarization of light. We all know this phenomenon. So these features are there which show light is a wave. Similarly, Compton effect, that is photons possess momentum, etc., they showed that light has a particle character. Like a particle, light or photons, they possess momentum. De Broglie, he thought the other way around, as light particles or photons have momentum, is it possible that particles can have wave nature? Material particles can have wave nature, and it was postulated by Louis de Broglie. His proposal was that if a material particle, definitely it is a subatomic particle. If a matter has a momentum p, a material particle has a momentum p, that means it has to be a moving material particle. Then the corresponding wavelength of the matter wave is lambda equal to h by p, where h is essentially the Planck constant. And we know that in some other ways, or using some other features, this expression gives us some other useful relations which are primarily for photons. Say if lambda is the wavelength of a photon, then the momentum associated with it, p, is h by lambda. It comes from de Broglie hypothesis. We see it here. And So after certain manipulations, you see P equal to E by C, this is for photon, and E equal to h nu. As we know, we obtain this result. And if we use k equal to 2 pi by lambda, you all know this is known as the kind of wave vector, propagation number, etc. And then this is P equal to h cross k, where h cross equal to h by 2 pi, etc. You know these relations. Our purpose is to discuss the main relation lambda equal to h by p and how it came. De Broglie actually was interested in studying Bohr's orbits. We can remember that Bohr proposed that electrons will move in a circular orbit, and if the matter wave is associated with the electron, that means if electron exhibits its wave nature with a certain wavelength lambda, then the circular orbit, length of the circular orbit, which is 2 pi r, where r is the radius of the circular orbit. Here you see that the dotted line is the orbit, and this is r, the radius. Then the length of the orbit is 2 pi r. And if the associated wavelength is lambda, that means lambda is this part. So from here to this point, one wavelength. So then lambda should be such that the entire path 2 pi r can be written as an integer multiple of lambda. Otherwise, what will happen if it is not written, if it is not possible to write 2 pi r equal to n lambda, then you can assume that say 2 pi r equal to m lambda, m. So this m is a fraction, assume that. Then what will happen if you start from here, say this point is our starting point, and we try to fit the entire 2 pi r path with lambda wavelength. So we start from here lambda, and then again lambda, again lambda, again lambda, and so on. But we will come back at this point where this matching will not be done if m is a fraction. That means in that case you started from this point, but say at this point displacement is 0, and when you complete the entire path, then the end point will not have 0 displacement with needed phase. Say it may be any arbitrary point. That means at the same point, as the frequency of electron is very high, at the same point different phases will come and fall, and ultimately it will be a destructive kind of interference, not destructive interference, kind of meaningless interference actually, and no stable path will be formed, no stable state will be formed. So to obtain a stable state, as de Broglie himself put it, to obtain a stable state, in order to have a stable state, the length of the channel, that means 2 pi r, must be in resonance with the wave. So in resonance means it has to match exactly. I repeat, say I choose a different starting point. From here, say the wave started. So at as it is in the picture right now, at this point say displacement is 0, and then it is rising, and just the before point the displacement is 0, but on the opposite side. And now after one path is completed filled with lambda, it may be possible that this matching is not made, say a kind of this part is kind of this feature is obtained, say another part, so the top of the wave is merged here, so the resonance will not be seen and the path will not be stable. And if it is assumed this way, the 2 pi r equal to n lambda, and now you use Bohr's condition that angular momentum equal to nh by 2 pi, that this is quantization condition of angular momentum, then just replace this n from this equation. So you write n equals to pi r by lambda, and then place mv equal to p, and you obtain lambda equal to h by p. So if p is the momentum of the material particle, then it will be lambda, which is lambda will be equal to h by p, which is the de Broglie wavelength of electron. So how can we measure that if it is so? So the easiest possible way is to apply a voltage which accelerates the electron and drives it towards some point, towards some, say, anode plate. The electrons are ejected at some place from some plate and collected at some other plate. In between they are accelerated so that they have the energy E into capital V, where V is the voltage, and electrons have the kinetic energy half mv square equals p square by 2m. So p square by 2m equals ev, and p equals root over 2m ev, as you see it. So we determine lambda equal to h by p equals h by this one, root over 2m e into v. Now, as we know, the values of Planck constant, rest mass of electron, charge of electron. So put all the values and we will see that lambda becomes 12.26 by root over v in angstrom. So if v changes, lambda will change. This is very important feature. We will apply it later during when we study the experimental verification. And note that the mass of electron here is the rest mass, but if the electron is moving with a very high velocity, it has very high energy, then the relativistic considerations are will be very important. So what is that? If the electron is relativistic, that means if it has very high velocity, very high energy, then its total energy is the rest mass energy plus the kinetic energy. So the kinetic energy T is energy, total energy minus rest mass energy m naught c square. Again we know that E square equal to p square c square plus m naught square c to the power 4, where p is the momentum and c is the velocity of light. So use it, write E equals t plus m naught c square whole square, and then use this relation whole square, t plus m naught c square whole square equal to p square c square plus m naught square c to the power 4. You frame this expression and then expand it, cancel the m naught square c to the power 4 term from both sides and find out p to be this expression. And therefore, as you obtain p, you obtain the de Broglie wavelength of electron, lambda equals h by p, and use it. Now, if the electrons are accelerated by a voltage V, then T equals E into V, as we have already done here. Kinetic in non-relativistic case, kinetic energy equals E into V. Here also kinetic energy T equals E into V, and then we replace E into V in place of T in equation 2, expression 2, and lambda equals this expression. So just to note that these expressions 1, in fact, along with this expression also, I have not given it any number, but this expression lambda equal to h by p equals h by root over 2 mev, and then with all other equations 1, 2 and 3, they are very important, and you will need those to solve numerical problems. And the experimental verification of matter waves is important, because the de Broglie's hypothesis is a theoretical prediction, kind of theoretical postulate, and that matter will have certain wavelength, matters will exhibit wave property, it will have a wavelength lambda equal to h by p. It is a theoretical proposition of de Broglie in 1924, and within 3 years experimental observations were made, and these two are two separate experiments. The Davison-Germer experiment, it took place in the United States of America, and the experiment of G.P. Thomson, it was carried out in England. And this G.P. Thomson was son of Professor J.J. Thomson, who discovered electron. Professor Thomson, Senior Thomson, was awarded Nobel Prize for that, and G.P. Thomson, his son, awarded Nobel Prize together with Davison for experimental verification of matter waves, or wavelength of electron, the wave property of electron. Both of them in separate experiments, in separate manners, they used actually the diffraction technique, in fact. So what is there in Davison-Germer experiment? We actually focus on Davison-Germer experiment according to your syllabus. So in Davison-Germer experiment, just you see that I give a brief description here. This block, as you see, it is written G here. This block is an electron gun. Electrons are ejected from here. This F is a filament. It is heated. Thermal electrons are ejected from the filament, and this A is anode plate. The electrons are attracted towards the anode, as the anode is in positive. You see it here. The anode plate is in positive bias, and there is a hole in the anode plate, and from where the ejected electrons are taken through the anode plate, and they are again focused. So so it is a strongly focused beam of electrons are obtained from the electron gun, and the electron guns electrons from electron gun are allowed to fall on a nickel crystal. This is a nickel crystal, and then the electrons are scattered. You just see that this looks like a reflection of light. Electrons are scattered at different angles depending on the orientation of the nickel surface, the crystal surface. Depending on the crystal surface, the electrons are scattered at different angles, and if you place a detector, this D is a detector, this is a Faraday cup, it is called so, collector or detector. You place detectors along this A scale. This is a, as you see it, this is a the semicircular scale covering 180-degree range. So electrons are scattered in different angles and collected at the detectors, and if the detection is uniform, then that means at every angle the number of electrons scattered are same, then you get an uniform distribution. If it is not so, if at some particular direction very high number of electrons are collected, and in some other directions very low number of electrons are collected, then we can say that there is a preference, and there is a preference of direction. In some directions scattering or scattering of electrons take place more prominently, some other directions it is not so prominent, and then we will see what happens next. Note that this angle phi, this is the this angle phi, and this is the scattered angle, the angle between this incident ray and this ejected ray, scattered ray. Just note that 2 points, because focusing of electron beam, as it is done here, this focusing of electron beam is used in electron microscope. Electron microscope is a very powerful microscope with very high magnification, very high resolution, which is also an application of the wave property of electron. And the second thing is Bragg's law of X-ray diffraction was known. It was discovered in the year 1912. And what Bragg's law says, actually, we see in a later diagram, that when X-ray, it is given here for electrons, but same case happens for X-ray. When X-ray falls on a crystal plane, these are crystal plane. You will study it later in different in other semesters, in next semesters. So it is a three-dimensional thing. Actually, we are seeing it in 2 dimensions. So the dotted lines you see, these are actually planes. And in a crystal, the atoms, they are arranged in a particular manner. So in a regular manner. So and this manner is a feature of each crystal, has its own feature of own orientation and own array, in fact. So these are 2 different planes, and these planes has a spacing of d, which is known as the lattice spacing, and it is determined from Bragg's law. When X-ray falls on it, it is seen that after reflection or diffraction, it is seen that the maximas are found at some particular angles, not at all angles. That means this theta will take some particular value where the scattered X-ray will show maxima. And this formula is given by 2d sin theta equals n lambda. Lambda is the wavelength of X-ray, n is the order of the maxima, first maxima, second maxima, third maxima, as you have seen in diffractions. And this theta, you use this theta, and d is the lattice spacing. So you just take a crystal and do an X-ray diffraction experiment, measure the angle where the maxima takes place. For each maxima, theta will be different, but your lambda is same for X-ray, the incident X-ray, and from there you obtain the lattice spacing d. That means using Bragg's law and X-ray diffraction, we can calculate the lattice structure. Actually, this was known when the Davison-Germer experiment took place. We will use it later. And what was observed when electrons ejected from an electron gun fall on a crystal, nickel crystal? It is a single crystal, actually. It is written single crystal of nickel, and the incident electrons are scattered by it in different directions, and in different directions the electrons are collected and then they are plotted against the scattering angle. That means the intensity of scattered electrons is plotted against the scattering angle. Means that phi, this angle between incident ray and reflected ray. The accelerating voltage is fixed initially at a point, then the whole angle is scanned, the 180 degree range is scanned, and the plot is made. Then the voltage is increased, again a whole range scanning, and the plot is done this way. So this is a 40 voltage plot, this one is the plot actually, this is a 44 volt, this is a 48 volt plot, and so on. Initially at 40 volt it is seen that a smooth curve is obtained. This is a smooth curve, as you see it. This is a smooth curve. Now this curve is a smooth curve, but if we increase the voltage, say at 44 degree volt, it is seen that a hump generates. The curve is no more smooth. So some maxima kind of thing is generated here, and this angle is measured, it is 60 degree. This is actually the angle of scattering. In x-axis the angle of scattering is plot, and in y-axis the electron intensity is plotted, and in x-axis the angle of scattering is plot. This is called the polar plot. And initially a smooth curve is seen. As voltage is increased, a hump develops. And this hump, it is seen that this hump is most prominent at 54 degree. 54 volt. The hump is most prominent with an angle 50 degree. The hump is generated at an angle 50 degree. Now, if we see that the hump generates when the voltage is increased, this is a mistake here. This is not 54 degree, this is 50 degree. I have made a mistake here. This is a 50 degree, the angle of scattering. So, make this correction. So, the reflections as compared to light, we can say that kind of reflection is taking place, are selective reflection. It was observed before in case of X-rays falling on crystal surface. That means selective reflection. The reflection is not uniform over the entire range of the scale. At some particular direction, at some particular energy of accelerating electron, that means when the accelerating electrons has some definite momentum, the reflection is a maximum at a particular direction. This is known as a selective reflection, and it was acceptable. It was observed before in case of X-rays, but note that X-rays were waves, but the electrons are so far known as particles. But the particle nature of electrons cannot explain such selective reflection when its velocity is changed. Why the velocity is changed? Because there is the change in accelerating voltage. Now, as the particle nature of electrons failed to explain it, the wave nature of electrons and Bragg's law are successful in case of explaining this. The de Broglie wavelength, if we calculate, and for putting V equal to 54, we see that lambda comes out to be 1.67 angstrom from de Broglie calculation. And now using Bragg's law, 2d sin theta equal to n lambda, as we know that n equal, for the first order n equal to 1, and for nickel crystal the lattice spacing d is 0.91 angstrom, and theta as is measured, the angle of scattering is theta here. This is 50 degree. So, this is angle of scattering is 50 degree. So, this angle plus this angle is 130 degree, that is 180 degree minus 50 degree. So, this angle plus this angle is 130 degree. So, theta equal to 130 by 2 equals 65 degree. So, our lambda, putting n equal to 1. So, lambda is 2 into d, this is d, into sine of 65 degree, comes out to be 1.65 angstrom. So, this is a remarkable matching. In fact, the minor deviations are due to experimental errors in measurement and so on, well within experimental error limit. So, this gave a huge success of the Davison-Germer experiment in explaining the wave nature of electron, and the wavelength of electron is determined this way. Now, if we change V, then we will see the angle at a the maxima at a different angle, and from then also we can calculate lambda, because we know that as the velocity will increase, the momentum will increase, the voltage will increase, the momentum will increase, and the momentum increases means, according to de Broglie hypothesis, lambda equals h by p. If p is higher, then lambda will be lower. And there was a second experiment of Davison and Germer actually, where the collector is placed at a particular angle, and there are many features of experiment actually. This particular angle was chosen depending on some symmetry, this angle equals that angle, etc. We will not go in the detail, but we will just see the results, that the collector is placed at a particular angle, and the accelerating voltage is varied now. and as the angle increases, as the accelerating voltage increases, it is seen that the intensity of scattered electron at that particular direction, that means that particular angle, is not uniform. It reaches a maxima at a certain voltage. So at different voltages, they give different orders of maxima. This is the first order maxima, second order maxima, and so on. So the maxima of intensity is plotted against root V, and it is seen that the peaks in the intensity are appearing at certain voltages. Those voltages were used in this formula, lambda equals 12.26 by root V for different orders, and compared with Bragg's law, and excellent matching was found. And this way the wave property of electrons were established. So we conclude here today.